Hello. How's everybody doing today? Well, I guess it's 11 o'clock and it's time to get started. So I really look forward to having a fun conversation with Malcolm Burrows today. I'm Janine Purves, and I am one of the donor motivation consultants who represents the GTA area. But of course, there's a lot more than that to what I do. In fact, I've been in the financial services industry for well over 25 years. And one of my big passions was I think within 6 months of being a CFP, I actually started asking everybody what impact they could have and how they wanted to give back because I found so many people were doing it that we wanted to make sure that they were doing it in the best way they could have the most impact. And that really was a lot of my why for many years. And that continued to grow. In fact, that's how I met Malcolm Burrows. Malcolm and I actually worked together when I first, not when I first started, but a while after I took over some clients from another advisor. And lo and behold, Malcolm and his wife Barbara were some of those clients. So it has been a pleasure working with him. And I'm really excited to interview him today. And it's interesting, Malcolm, because the one thing is we always had some really good, insightful conversations. A lot of interesting things came up over the years as we spoke. So when I was asked to speak at the CAGP conference back in 2019, I knew you had been involved with CAGP and I knew there was lots going on and you had continued to do so much more in the philanthropic world, but I didn't realize how deep it went until I got there and saw everything and saw the behind the scenes. And
Mm.
um, so that's why I want to talk to you today. I just think it's so much fun. There's so much going on, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say and share with us. So maybe tell us a little bit why you're here today.
Well, because you asked me, Janine, but and I can't say no.
But you said
No,
yes.
it's uh, it's I mean have CAGP in my blood at this point, and I love this format. I just think it's terrific. That how do we maintain this gift planning community? How do we grow this gift planning community at a time where we've lost these physical connections? And so to be able to share and reflect on these things, talk shop, and just be able to chat about philanthropy and what we do in the gift planning space
Yeah.
is always a delight to me. So
Okay. Well, before we get into like the serious stuff and the history that we said we were going to share, I just want to know, do you have a drink today that you're sharing at your campfire?
Uh, well, I'm doing sort of a strange thing. So one of my COVID things, it's not just a drink; it's a whole darn bottle because it's COVID. And I've recently rediscovered, well, not even rediscovered. I grew up thinking sherry was the most disgusting drink on the face of the earth, and as I've become more and more of a wine geek, I've decided that I love sherry, Spanish sherry,
Ah,
dry, drunk cool. So you have to make sure that it's chilled. It's more like a cocktail or an aperitif. You eat it with food and tapas and all the rest of it. And it's become the tipple of my choice in the last little while. And I never thought it would happen because I had a temperance grandmother who gave up all drink except for sherry because it didn't count, and she drank the most ghastly sweet junk that I ever ever experienced. As I would sneak the end of the glass and then go. Gah. So this is my my COVID rediscovery.
okay. Well, I love that. And I love the fact that, you've got a little bit of the garb you're wearing, you got
Oh
your
yeah,
little hat on. So we could be
COVID
around a
hair.
bonfire. Every time I'm at a bonfire, a campfire, there has to be music. So I didn't bring the guitar because that's a little big, but I did bring,
Yeah.
we usually have shakers or tambourines for those of us that aren't quite as musically inclined, which definitely is me. I just love listening. So I don't have music in the background, guys. I'm sorry, but I've got the hoodie. I've got, we're doing what we can. My drink is really boring, but I call it my Janine Summer Special. And it doesn't mean that I create anything exciting. It just means that it's cranberry, fresh lime juice, and soda with ice. And, I often, usually, will add vodka in the summer. And I'll let you guys guess whether I put it in today or not. But the whole idea is the fresh fruit juice is just so wonderful. Sometimes we'll do it in the blender with ice, with a little pineapple or orange or whatever, and it's kind of go anywhere. It every time I have one, it makes me smile, and I think the sun's shining, and maybe summer will never end, which we know is not true. But that's my go-to. So that's what I'm enjoying today, and the sun is shining, so that's
And it's
awesome.
beautiful.
I don't know if it's shining everywhere across Canada where you guys are, but at least we've got it in GTA, which is nice
Mhm.
because, lots of gray days in the winter. So we have to appreciate these. So, Malcolm, why don't you tell us? I mean, I said I was interested because you had been so involved in CAGP and it's kind of evolved a lot over the years.
Mhm.
Maybe you can tell me of how you actually got involved in CAGP at the beginning.
Oh, totally by accident. My first job in this space in gift planning fundraising world was at the University of Toronto, and quite by accident, the founding group of gift planners who came across the country. There was 11 of them. They met in Toronto and used our boardroom at the University of Toronto. And my then close colleague and one of the people I reported to, John Hockstad, was one of the 11. And he essentially voluntold me to get involved. So I started meeting everybody, and he chaired the first conference. So, and voluntold me to do the marketing for the first conference. So I knew
Mhm.
very little about gift planning until I started to be yanked into this world. So I ended up being there from day one, totally by accident.
Wow. So
So,
that's even before Sick Kids.
oh yeah, oh heavens
Okay.
yes, that's like two jobs back. This is
Just a few years ago. It's okay.
1991. It's just
No
about
full
30
disclosure
years.
required.
Yeah, 30 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. See, I didn't even realize it went back that far. So tell me, I'm just curious, maybe you can highlight a little bit of what the focus of the organization was in the early days. Give us a little history for those of us who are a bit newbies for CAGP.
Eh, To me, it's one of the most fascinating things how we've evolved and changed and grown with gift planning, because the whole concept. So, first and foremost, we always called ourselves the Canadian Association of Gift Planners. The Americans, who we were really inspired by and borrowing from, called themselves. It was plan giving, and and plan giving officers and all the rest of it. And so our sort of great mentor and guide, Frank Minton, came from the States and said, focus on the act of planning gifts. Don't be stuck just focused on estate donations and bequests in the future. Look at it holistically. That being said, it was still very much a regime that was, and a way of thinking that was about those future gifts, that was about gift vehicles and things like that. So watching CAGP go through and watching Canada, because CAGP is really the only fully Canadian organization in this space
Mhm.
that understands it. It's our first assumptions about what we'd focus on change completely by sort of midlife. And we've continued to grow and develop, but it's quite different than what we first thought, candidly.
So when you talk about it changed completely, maybe give me sort of maybe the first big evolution step as it
Yeah.
shifted.
So the, from and I'll focus on gift planning. There's certainly organizational changes and things like that, because CAGP was a volunteer hands-on organization that became increasingly professionalized, and in its offering, and just the depth of professionalization, and that's been a wonderful thing to be part of. But focusing on the gift planning itself as helping donors with their philanthropy, we really had a lot of hope at the front end that many of the American instruments we could bring north of the border and put in place. So there was a great emphasis on life income gifts like charitable gift annuities. There was a great emphasis on charitable remainder trusts, things like that, which, and in some ways they were sort of the ultimate high for a gift planner because they involved a lot of technical moving parts. They often involved an investment portion and things like that. But it's not that they're completely irrelevant, but we began to realize that they were essentially natural to the American system. They were embedded into the Internal Revenue Code and their regime of gift taxes and estate taxes. And they're actually didn't serve Canadian philanthropy very well. So it took us quite a while to sort of throw off, realize that we needed our own instruments, we had our own system, and we had to develop our own culture around giving. And it focused on different things. And that was a great aha. And it took us a long time to figure that out. And I think it's the advent in the mid-90s of capital gains elimination around public securities, for example, it's transformed what we do and how we do it, but that wasn't an emphasis at the beginning.
That's really fascinating. I feel like there's so many things. We look at things in all different types of planning and different strategies, and often we think we should adopt the US, but nah, it usually doesn't work, right? So another example of that as well. Maybe what do you think sets CAGP apart from some of the other organizations, either in the charitable space or just in general? Like, what do you think really makes it unique?
Um, to quote one of my lawyer friends in CAGP, we give hugs, you know, and because they go to, you know,
Virtual at the moment.
virtual Canadian Bar Association, they just don't do that stuff. But the fact that we have a mixture, a blend, this community that involves both active charity professionals and professional advisors of one sort or another, lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, this whole range. And the fact that, because I grew up working at charities, I spent the first 14 years working at charities as initially as in the communication side and then focused exclusively on the gift planning side. And to then, as all my colleagues from the charity side said, move to the dark side when I joined Scotia Trust to continue the gift planning work. It was so nice to be able to, it was just a continuity. For me, it was the same kind of work in a different setting, but to pull this all together and go to the others, to work in a for-profit environment, but to focus exclusively on charities and to have that community to learn from, to draw on, to advocate through as we sorted out many of the issues in the regime, that's unique. And there's no other fully Canadian charity organization that's focuses on the technical, focuses on the Canadian Income Tax Act and those sorts of things, and really that larger policy environment. So it's a natural home, and it's I always view it as a big tent that welcomes all that are interested in this space.
One of the things that I know we have seen over the last number of years is that there's a lot of changes in Canadian behavior in terms of how they're
Mhm.
dealing with the charitable sector, in terms of the I guess the percentage of people that are donating, at least what we're seeing on their tax returns. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of that evolution as well.
It's no question. One of the things that's so interesting about sort of growing up in this space and is that a lot has changed in terms of donor behavior and just the culture of philanthropy and the support for it. So CAGP was intimately involved, actively involved with the change of the Income Tax Act. So we had an act that really focused on almost annual tithing. It's sort of faith-based donations from income. And to see a system that changed radically over the last 25 years to focus on these asset donations. And CAGP was front and center in those discussions, partly because we were both professional in the planning world as well as charities. We brought that together. The other factor is the attitudes around. We've seen a wealth effect, for better, for worse. Wealth is increased and it's become more concentrated. And so the whole invention of major and mega gifts, I couldn't imagine. I remember getting so terribly excited in my early years that we had no tradition of individual giving at U of T.
Mm-hmm.
It was all corporate and sort of lower level. People may have had assets, but they weren't giving in a way. So the largest gift we had in the largest campaign 30 years ago at the University of Toronto was just shy of $4 million. I mean, it was mind-bogglingly large. And the last, all of a sudden, we're seeing gifts of tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, the wealth concentration, but frankly, the support for giving generally, it's philanthropy isn't some strange, may still be a pretentious word, but it's not a strange word anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I often joke that if it wasn't for advertising from charities, the Globe and Mail would have gone out of business a long time ago. It's
I,
front and center.
I think it's interesting because I do believe the individuals as well. There's a journey that they have experienced, and I'll give you I know I'm interviewing you, but I'll just share a couple little stories
Yeah.
because the one scenario I had was a gentleman who was an accountant, and this is one of my early adopter clients who was always giving every single year. And he knew when the laws changed and he was on top of it. And we did a number of charities every year. So, he was with me at the beginning and helping me ask those questions and what was giving him impact. And I saw his satisfaction. And that's kind of how I started to grow in that. But the point was the accountant wouldn't allow him, the accountant who was also the treasurer at his church or something, wouldn't allow him to donate his shares. Everybody else did. And it was like, well, and the accountant was so proud because he had been involved in helping to change it, but he would only accept shares, not a mutual fund unit. Like, and the point is, he was older, retired. He was a lovely man. But the point is, it was just even people who thought they knew didn't really understand. So this education has
Yes.
continued to build over time, and people still don't always get it. So they hear it and they know, but it's just like anything. You know what I mean? Like you can, I don't know, like parenthood. You can say, yeah, it's not that hard to bring up a kid until you're actually in the middle of it. Like whatever it is, you don't always get it until you're doing it. I know that's a weird analogy, but you get my point.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah, and so I was just fascinated, and now I feel like there's a lot more education, and now it's not just like charitable giving is almost like what we do every year, but philanthropy is having almost like a plan or that taking that journey because it's now part of what you want to get out of life, not just, oh, I really believe in these charities and I'm giving my $1,000 a year or whatever the number is to help. And that part it's becoming more entrenched in many people, and I think it's a really interesting journey.
Well, I love your analogy, as strange as it may be, about children, because one of the great challenges that we face as gift planners is that everybody knows charitable giving and everybody knows kids. But when you have your own kids, it's a totally different
Hmm.
experience. And when you start, and the analogy back to charitable giving is that, as so many of you have heard me talk about before, I've used this analogy of the two pockets, cash flow pocket and asset pocket. And everybody pretty much has some experience giving from their cash flow pocket. So they think they know charitable giving, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of, they know a certain type of charitable giving, and they do it without thinking about any tax implications. They do it without thinking about, will I have enough? They do it without big legacy questions involved. And
Right.
there's all of these issues when you're dealing with exceptional donations out of the asset pocket. It's a totally different mindset.
Hmm.
It's a conceptual leap, and it's a conceptual leap that most people don't realize they have to make, or to ask for, ask for that additional support and education. And so we've developed this group of professionals out there at charities and a much broader group that work in some sort of a private practice that can support. And that's just increased. It was really just a handful of outliers. We didn't have charity lawyers back then, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
We had one or two lawyers who worked in charities and had expertise, but phenomenal shift and change. And the 20 plus changes to the Income Tax Act. Julia's nice shout out to Don Johnson and the important work around changing the regime around enabling gifts from assets like public securities. Terrific. I mean, these are profound changes.
Right. And I think that brings in, there have been, I think CAGP, one of the things I'm learning is that you and many others have been such a core part and really engaged. As you said, it's kind of in your blood. I feel like that the longevity and the expertise of some of the groups and the government affairs or government relations
Yeah.
committee, maybe you can share a little bit about something that is unique with CAGP. I think maybe share a
And
little bit of that.
absolutely, and it's so many others. But the consistency, CAGP has been this great voice in advocating for changes, new rules, clarifications with government and at all levels, not just at the federal level. And there's CAGP has had this amazing group and remarkably consistent group of volunteers who come together through the Government Relations Committee. I was at one point a chair, I took over from Bobby Kleinman, Susan Mannering took over from me, and we're all still on that committee. It's just outstanding. Amanda Stacy is now the chair of that committee. So you have charity people, you have advisors, and we've recently put together through CAGP a wonderful sort of list of where have we actually touched, what sort of changes have we had a meaningful impact on. And it's that consistency that people in our community don't sort of rotate off and disappear. I've done my term, I'm gone. That they stay, they continue to participate. At the same time, we have the next generation coming along and playing really big and meaningful roles.
That's an amazing combination that I know many organizations don't have the benefit
No,
of, right?
no.
You don't get to learn from the experience, and it's hard to transition too much. Anyways, that's really a nice story. I'm going to comment. Paul Nazareth made reference. I think there's a link. He said if you want to learn more about some of the things that CAGP has been involved in, so
Thanks,
check
Paul.
that out. It's in the chat. Well, Paul's always a wealth of
Yeah.
ideas, right? So I know we're actually almost out of time. So I just want to highlight, is there one idea or, okay, tell me a little bit about where you think the direction CAGP is going, at least in conjunction with how we impact giving in Canada.
So a couple of different aspects, at least from my perspective. I think that there's sort of the technical side. I think we continue to really contribute to that knowledge, that education. I've learned more from CAGP, attending, working with colleagues, networking, teaching, and we have a tremendous repository of knowledge and also know next issues that are coming up. The other thing that I think that it's really important is recognizing CAGP has not all organizations sort of continue to grow and thrive. I think CAGP is being very well managed. Shout out to Ruth and her team here. Really, really super. If you look at our American analogous organization, they've gone through 3 or 4 name changes. They've sort of gone like this over the years. And CAGP has navigated that and continued to evolve and grow and create again that sort of big tent feeling. And that's essential because we also have to be ready for, it's not a period of constant expansion anymore. We have a good system. And how do we make sure that that continues? And one of the most key elements of this is realizing that we have new challenges in the sector as well, is how do we really embody and exemplify that charitable ethos, the public benefit ethos, as the money becomes bigger, there's different players and changes like that. How do we make sure that we're doing the right thing for the community? And that's something that has to really sort of imbue our activity in the sector, and it needs to be transmitted through values-based organizations like CAGP. It's not just technical exercise, it's not just tax, it's how do we actually enable these gifts for the benefit of the community. And if we forget that, then we're truly in trouble. So I was about to swear.
I'm sure somebody will keep us on the straight and narrow then. Okay, last question for you. I want to ask you, what is one idea that you could give or action to all the people on this call today that we can help to, I guess, do more to help Canada in terms of the charitable giving space?
That's I would actually sort of fall back on my previous comment, is looking at what we do in terms of that public benefit. And I do believe that fundamentally it's that values-based thing. It's what donors look to us for. They want their own values and hopes and dreams reflected back, and we want to honor that. We also want to make sure that the organizations that we're involved with and support truly get the funding and benefits so they can do their great work. Those sorts of things, it's fundamental. And so it feels nebulous at times, but to me it's essential.
Staying donor driven. If everything we're doing is keeping the donors of interest and helping the causes that they care about, that impact is going to benefit them, and then that's going to come back to us. Is that a fair way of looking at it as well?
It is, and out to the community as well. Is making sure that there's that community benefit test is very important, as well as the mixture of the private and the public.
So I want to say thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to catch up with 80 or 90 of our closest friends, and maybe 100. I don't know. We had quite a few people on this call. I want to put in two comments. One is I just want to say that there's a conference coming up, and if you guys haven't registered, I know that. They're trying to get people to register by March 1st. You can register after that. But you talked about the education aspect, and I go to all sorts of stuff, and I was so impressed with the quality when I was there, and I'm a bit of a newbie with CAGP. So I'm really excited to make sure that I'm going to be participating and enjoying that conference this year. So I hope everybody on the call is also. And last is we have another Campfire chat with Ryan Fraser and Jenny Mitchell next week on March 4th. And I know they both are so passionate about what they do. I'm really excited to hear what they have to share. So I want to say thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope you had some ideas, and you know what? Go back to your donors and enjoy and talk and try to keep making a difference in Canada. So, and thanks to CAGP and all the long-term people for what you do.
Thanks, Janine.
Have a great day.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.